Hello, and welcome to The Serrated Edge, an Australasian Humour Studies Network podcast, where we speak with early career researchers and graduate students working in the humour studies field. A companion to the Cutting Edge podcast, the format is simple. Guests have 15 minutes to answer 5 questions about their research. It's short and sharp, so let's get on with it. My name is Till Knowles, and I'm a PhD student at Monash University, looking at live performance comedy and suicide jokes. And today I am joined by Dr. Fergus Edwards. At the time of recording, Fergus is a few days away from having his doctorate in English conferred by the University of Tasmania for a thesis titled Stoppard, Wittgenstein and Philosophy of Ethics, The Juggler on the Radio. His first degree was in philosophy, politics and economics at Oxford way back at the end of the 1990s, after which he had decades travelling the world with his career in finance, before he was finally able to return to academia. He's held a fellowship at the University of Texas, been published in philosophy and literature, and he's about to be published in modern drama. And he's presented at 3 Australasian Humour Studies Network conferences on theories of humour and the stage. He also enjoys running a long way, ideally in the mountains. Welcome, Fergus.
Hi, Till. It's a pleasure to be here.
It's so good to have you, and congratulations.
Thank you very much indeed. It's all a bit surreal at this point. I hope I'll get used to it.
Well, Dr. Edwards, could you please give us 3 keywords that summarise your research?
Sure. I'm going to do it as a sentence. So my research is performance conveys complexity. And what I mean by that is that oftentimes we think of complexity and sophistication as burrowing deeper and deeper into a single truth about something. And the reality is that lots of things in the world are more complicated than that, and they depend on lots of different perspectives. That's something you can put across in a performance that it's hard to get when you just look at the written word.
Yeah, that's a super cool concept and such a succinct way of putting it as well. So if performance conveys complexity, why humour?
Why humour? For 2 reasons. The first is that when you're part of an audience and you're watching something that contains humour, you're very aware of the other people around you. So if you want to have a sense of different perspectives, something that's funny makes you aware not just of what you're watching, but of the people who are there with you. You hear them laugh, you hear their reactions as well. The second thing, though, is that people laugh at different things. So you're not just aware that there are other people laughing at the same joke as you become aware of the cases where they're not laughing and you are, or vice versa. So you really start to get that kaleidoscopic view of what's in front of you and the idea that your own view of the world isn't the only one that's available.
I love that idea so much. The second part of what you just said about how humour can bring to the fore difference, because I think so much of comedy studies focuses on humour, laughter and comedy as a mechanism to create community and to bring audiences together. So I think it's so cool that your research is looking at the multiplicity of that experience. So looking at the stage, working in theatre studies, how would you describe your research methods?
Sure. So my work is in English, so it's a lot of close reading, close textual analysis. There is some reception theory. It's important to know what people made of the plays when they were first staged. And there's also some archival research. And that's archival research not necessarily to figure out what the playwright thought they were writing, but often it's a time of figuring out what the playwright wanted to avoid writing about. The interpretations that a playwright might have considered in certain drafts and then discarded because it wasn't heading in the direction they wanted. And the reason for doing that is that ultimately the playwright is just one member of the audience when they come and watch their play, but obviously they've had a chance to impact that play through the text, through rehearsals, through the notes that are given each night to the actors. So they do play an important role in what is then in front of the audience. And the playwrights I've worked with have been particularly interested in when did the audience laugh? Did they get the joke? How can they make something hit right? And are they getting laughs at the wrong place? So it's a very literary focus on drama, but it does have a focus not just on humour, but also on what is the audience making of what's there on the stage for them.
Mm. Yeah, that's really interesting combination of the textual analysis and archival audience positioning. Sorry, quick clarifying question, cheeky of me,
Sure.
but which playwrights do you work with mostly?
So predominantly, and the thesis
Mm.
is all about Tom Stoppard. So I've read some fantastic notes from Tom Stoppard to Brian Cox to tell him to, yep, stop hamming it up on stage. But I've also done some work on Václav Havel, on Carol Churchill, on other playwrights who have been working really anytime from the 1960s up till today.
Mm.
I've tended to see them in relation to what Stoppard's been doing at around the same time. But that turns out to be a very rich seam to investigate. A lot of Stoppard's work is work that approaches intellectual conceits that other people are also interested in, but from very different angles again.
I
All
see.
of this idea of approaching things from different perspectives and seeing how different stresses are put on for different audiences at different times.
Yeah, cool. So we've mentioned it a few times because it's a very big deal, but you just finished the doctorate. And what is something that you wish you'd known at the start of your PhD?
So I was thinking about this, and I was thinking about the conversations I've had with other new HDR students and new PhD students. And I came from a 16-year career in investment banking before I came back to academia.
Mm.
So I was doing this because I wanted to be an academic, but I knew what it was to turn up at 9 in the morning, leave at 5, work the regular hours. The thing that I got that I don't think everyone gets is I was exceptionally lucky with my supervisors out the door, that
Mm.
they appreciated not just the intellectual value of the work, but that there was a process that was going to last 3.5 to 4 years. And if you showed up, and if you had a plan, and if you hit the plan, then you would end up with the thesis covered. And I don't see that for every new early career researcher, every new HDR. And I don't see every HDR realizing that actually it is okay early on in the process to say, we need to talk about what this process is. Forget that we're doing doctorates. We're here to turn out 100,000 words of something in 3.5 years. How do we get there? And what do we do to keep that process on track? And that seems really banal. But if you've
Mm.
got that locked down, then you have the mental capacity to really give the best of yourself to your work. If there's a constant underlying anxiety of when do I hand in my next draft or shouldn't I have a chapter done by now, you're not giving yourself to the work because you're too fixated on where are my deadlines. And so for me, what that meant from day one was having the right supervisors. And there I just lucked out.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's secretly two pieces of advice, which is great. Have good supervisors and have a plan that involves deadlines, not just for the end of next week, but going forward into the future and thinking about the work as a project. So it's so easy to feel like you're reinventing the wheel as an art student. It can be really isolating, but
I think
so many people have done this before.
That's totally right. There's a line in a Stoppard play. As it happens, Brian Cox is playing the character, and he says, "It's the work that does the work. There isn't anything else." And I think it's really tempting when we start our doctorates to think actually there's going to be a light bulb of inspiration and that is somehow going to carry the whole project through. And it just doesn't work like that. You're going to have to be in front of that laptop typing away for a certain number of hours over a certain number of years. So lean into that, just get it done. And the supervisors supporting that and scaffolding it is a big part of that process too.
Yeah, absolutely. So, final question, nice and easy one. What's the role of humour in staging philosophy?
Oh, yeah. How long have you got? Well, you've got about 2 minutes.
Yeah, we have about 5 minutes left. So.
So my research and the philosopher who I am working with predominantly is Wittgenstein.
Mm.
And Wittgenstein has all sorts of different views at different points in time about different things. But at a very deep level, what he wants is he wants for us to be able to see the world as it is and not see the world as we necessarily talk about it or as we try our hardest to talk about it to other people. And one of his big ideas is that when we use language, we're striving to describe the world as we see it and as we engage with it. And sometimes we get that wrong. And that is where humor becomes incredibly important in conveying complexity and conveying philosophical complexity. Because humor lets you see that other people do not see the world the way we do,
Mm.
that there may not be one single monolithic truth about how to act in a given situation, what the right thing to do is, how to respond to something unexpected. And obviously, that's within the space of ethics, but the same is true within the space of political philosophy. What might be a way of seeing the world and arguing that politics should be conducted is right at some points in time and wrong at others. It's contextual, it's dependent on the culture, and humor, if it's used well, lets you realize quite how wrong your assumptions can be because it relies on you having two different views of the world and recognizing at the point of the punchline, oh, geez, it could have been that other one. It could have been the other thing.
Mm.
Now I see. Oh, good grief. And particularly in performance, when you hear the laughter from the others in the room and you realize you've all just been seeing things one way, and now, of course, we should see them from this other perspective. That you get both a sense of community, you get both a sense of that it's okay to see the world slightly differently from how you'd seen it before. And you also get you start to get the idea that I think is really important, but potentially quite dangerous, that maybe there are no monolithic truths, right? Maybe there's just the way we're all agreeing we see things right now. And that's not going to be true of everything at every time and so on and so on. But when you do that through humor, it's far more possible to get people engaged in those ideas of multiplicity, complexity, the lack of a single way that the world is and will be evermore, than if you tell them that. Because if you tell them that, you're going to lose them before you begin. They're going to say, well, that's just not how I see the world, and I'm not going to listen to you because our worldviews are so different. Why would I ever choose to take your perspective? If I'm laughing with you because we've both had our perceptions shifted a little bit by the punchline, well, now I can kind of start to see that maybe there's something in the way you see things, and maybe the way I see the world, it's not always true in every circumstance. So humor allows you to have people register that complexity without having to intellectually commit to it. And so it can get you a lot further down the line in appreciating what certainly Wittgenstein's going to say are some really serious, deep truths about how we perceive the world and how we mislead ourselves in a way that you just can't do in an academic work. And Wittgenstein, helpfully for us today, does also have that wonderful one-liner that a deep and serious philosophical work could be written entirely consisting of jokes. So he is on board with the project, albeit he's not known for his one-liners.
I was about to say, I don't think he wrote the joke book, though.
He most certainly did not. He most certainly did not. Never knowingly a funny speaker.
That's excellent. Thank you so much, Fergus. At the start, we mentioned a couple of places that you've published, but if people are interested in reaching you or reading more of your work, is there somewhere that they can go to find you?
Best place is going to be fergus.edwards@utas.edu.au, and I will be on Blue Sky, as we all will be now.
Excellent. Thank you so much.
Not at all. Thank you. It's been a pleasure.